Hi, authors. My name is Mrs. Lanning, and I'm so excited to welcome you back to our Writers Workshop. All right, friends, so we have been working on so many different types of writings as authors this year, and I want us to think back about all the different types of writing that we've learned and how we've learned to do them. So we've worked on small moment stories, which also is sometimes called narrative, telling those stories about our lives. We've done information writing. Now, I want us to think about those types of writing. And I'm curious, do you remember ways that we can do those types of writing well? What are some strategies and things we can do to write really great small moment stories? Can you tell me? Ooh, I heard someone say, bring out the inside, talk about the way the character's feeling in their mind and thinking in their heart. That's a good one. Telling the story in itsy bitsy steps. You friends remember your strategies. Okay, what about this one? What do you remember about how to write information stories well? Ooh, that's right. I heard someone talk about making comparisons, using labels, using those describing words. Great job. So, you authors know so much about those types of writing. And now we're ready to start learning and start writing a new kind of writing. And the job that a writer has when starting a new kind of writing is to look closely at the work that other authors have done and think to themselves, how do writers make this type of writing really good? And what did that writer do that I can try too? We've done that in every unit. We've looked at other authors and seen. So, writers, the type of writing that we're now working on in this unit is writing about our ideas and our thoughts. So, you've seen already that we're using sentence stems like I think, or I feel, or this is the best, or whatever it is that you're describing. And that can be challenging because instead of writing about what we know or do, such as facts like the sun is bright, you are writing about your ideas and your thoughts. For example, you might say the sun is the best star in the solar system. You're sharing your ideas and your thoughts. And people call this type of writing opinion writing because the writer tells about his or her opinions and ideas. Today, I want to teach you that when you write something, it is important to understand the kind of writing that you're doing and to figure out ways that people do that kind of writing really well, because then that means that you can try those things in your own writing. So once again, we're working on opinion writing, and that's where we're sharing our thoughts, our ideas, or we said our judgment about things, what we think is the best, maybe what you think is the worst. So this is the challenge. How do people do that opinion writing really well? And one way to answer that big question is to look closely at some really good opinion writing and figure out what that writer did. And just like those dog show judges use a checklist to help figure out which is best in show, writers can use checklists too. Now, let's look at the checklist that you'll use this year to set goals and reflect on the progress that you're making as opinion writers. Now, writers, you've seen these checklists before, and each time you noticed the checklist was special to that type of writing. We had a special checklist for our small moments, our narrative writing. We had a special checklist for our information writing. So what do you think we're going to get for our opinion writing? That's right, a checklist, because that can help us to see what we're doing well, and then if there's something we're not doing well and we're not doing yet, oh my goodness, do we just throw our hands up and throw a whole big tantrum? No, that's silly. We say, ooh, I'm not doing that yet, but I'm going to star that because that's going to be my goal is to work on that. I need to work on adding periods, or I need to work on adding more details. Whatever it is, we don't throw a big fit because we're missing it. We mark it down. We make note of what we're struggling with, and we set it as a goal, as something to work on and improve on. So let's look over our opinion writing checklist. Let me read it to you. So one thing that is on the checklist is I wrote my opinion or my likes and dislikes and said why. So they stated their opinion and said why. I wrote a beginning in which I got the reader's attention. I named the topic or text I was writing about and I gave my opinion. I said more about my opinion and used words such as and because, using those transition words. And an ending, I wrote an ending for my piece. And organizing it, I wrote a part where I got my reader's attention and a part where I said more. And then elaboration, that's a big word. That means when you go into detail. So it says, I wrote at least one reason for my opinion. You didn't just say, chocolate is the best. You said, chocolate is the best. It is the best because it is creamy and delicious. So you gave a reason. You're using your elaboration. And a craft. I used labels and words to give details. Well, you friends got a lot of practice with that in information writing, so I think you're prepared. And in spelling, I used all I know about words and chunks of words to help me spell. And I spelled all the word walls right and used the word wall to help me spell other words. And you friends remember too, if we're stuck on a tricky word, you can say it, slide it, hear it, write it. That's a great strategy for you to check off on that checklist. And punctuation, I ended sentences with punctuation. I used a capital letter for names, and I used commas in dates and lists. So now that we have an idea of what makes opinion writing so strong and powerful, let's look at my friend Brandon's writing, and let's see how his work is progressing. Brandon is a boy your age, and here is his story. We're going to read it together, and we will come back to this checklist to see what he did. Now I want to remind you, when we read his story and we go through the checklist, if we see something's missing, do we go, oh, Brandon, you're missing that. That's so bad. You're an awful author, Brandon. Is that what we do? No. We say, hey, Brandon, I noticed that you don't have this yet. Maybe that's something you can set a goal for. We encourage each other. Authors are always setting goals and trying new things. They're not perfect at every type of writing yet or every strategy. They work on it and set goals. So here's Brandon's story. Brandon, and I see a picture of a beetle and a fly. Ooh, and he even has a label that says pinchers. All the bugs in my collection are gross, and that is cool. I like a lot of the bugs, but the one I like the best is the giant pincher beetle, because its pinchers really grip things, even someone's finger. When you squeeze its back, the pinchers snap closed. The beetle is better than the fly, even though the fly's eyes are cool and glossy green. The beetle is better because it's bigger and because the fly doesn't do anything good like pinch things. It just stays still. Today, I made the beetle grab the fly and pinch it, and then I pretended it ate a fly for its dinner. All right, so we can give a round of applause for Brandon. Great story. Thanks for sharing with us, Brandon. So here's that opinion checklist. Here's one that's a little bit more detailed for you if it's easier for you to read it this way. And so we're thinking about what Brandon just wrote, and we're going to go through our checklist and see and say, yes, he's done it, or he's starting to, or maybe not yet. I wrote my opinion and said why. Did he share his opinion? What was his opinion? That's right, he thinks the beetle is the best. And did he tell us why? Oh my goodness, yes. He talked about the pinchers and how it's so cool, it can do things. We're going to give him a check. Yes, let's do that. Check under the yes. All right, next it says, in the beginning, I got my reader's attention and gave my opinion. So did he do that? Did he get our attention? He did, because he told me all the bugs in my collection are gross and that is cool. I was like, what? I'm talking about bugs and they're gross and they're cool all at the same time? That got my attention. I think we can say yes. I said more about my opinion. He said and because. Yes, he gave because. He explained those things. All right. And of course, did he write at least one reason? I'm going to say yes, because he gave us more than one reason. He gave us multiples. It says, I used labels and words to give details. He did give us some labels and he did add some details. But you know what? I think he could add even more labels and details, because I noticed he didn't label the fly. So maybe we could put starting to and check in the middle for that. Something that he can improve on and grow. I wrote an ending for my piece. Now, at the end of the story, typically when you're sharing your opinion, you might say, that is why I think, or that is why it's the best. Now, I noticed at the end of his story, he kind of just went into a whole personal narrative of small moments, talking about how he was playing with the beetle and the fly. And I don't really know if that was an ending to his opinion. So maybe we'll say not yet, and that's something that he can work on. And that's okay. That's exciting when we have new goals and things to improve on. So writers, before you go off today, I'd like you to take a moment and compare your own writing to the opinion writing checklist. I will reread through the checklist again, and this time you will find places in your own writing where you're already doing these things. If you do find something that you're already doing, in your own writing, in your own story, maybe you make a star to show, yep, that's where I did a punctuation, that's where I added details, that's where I put my opinion. But let's say if you can't find a place in your writing where you've done something from the checklist, maybe I get to punctuation and you realize, ooh, I didn't use punctuation yet. You haven't used it yet. You're not going to mark your page because you don't have any punctuation to star. But what you could do is you could, on the checklist, just put a star there and make it a goal, or maybe in your head, you make it a star in your head. I'm going to work on punctuation. You can make the star in your mind as well. And it can become your goal for your writing. So I want you to look at your writing, and I'm going to read through this briefly. I wrote my opinion or my likes and dislikes and said why. I wrote a beginning in which I got my reader's attention. I named the topic or the text I was writing about and gave my opinion. Now remember, you can always pause this video if you need to go through and check. I said more about my opinion and used words such as and because. I wrote an ending for my piece. I wrote a part where I got my reader's attention and a part where I said more. I wrote at least one reason for my opinion. I used labels and words to give details. I used all I know about words and chunks of words to help me spell. I spelled all the word walls right and used the word wall to help me spell other words. I used sentences with punctuation. I used a capital letter for names. I used commas in dates and lists. So, like I said, friends, you can pause and go through the checklist on your own if you need to. Now, I want you to think about what you want to work on today. Maybe you want to revise and add to a previous story because you realized you have some goals that you've set for yourself, some of those star items that you want to work on. Or maybe you're ready to write a new story. I want you to think about what you're going to work on today, and when you know what you're going to do, it'll be your turn. Writers, go write.